Yesterday, we learned the swimming's world governing body, FINA, voted through a new policy basically blocking trans women, so biological men, from competing in all the major elite events. In a landmark move, it's been held as a victory for women's sport. Basically, if you've gone through any part of male puberty, you cannot compete against women. It's not an anti-trans move. This is just a victory for fairness in women's sport, isn't it?
Absolutely, and this is what we were saying, you know, in 2015, when the IOC changed the rules and we lobbied them then, 60 of us signed a letter saying, please do the science first, because you cannot expect men to have fair sport and women just to move over in their own category of sport. And they didn't listen. They prioritised inclusion over fairness for women, and that was never right.
Well, it's inclusion for biological men as opposed to inclusion for the woman who might otherwise have won second or third or anything else. But this is the key thing. When, you can, as we've seen with, Leah Thomas and others, you can change your name. You can do anything you want. The current rules, basically, you can compete as a male athlete. You can then decide to, yes, I've decided to transition. No medical treatment at all. No surgery, nothing. You can be 6 foot tall. You could have competed, and then you're allowed to compete against women. It's just not fair.
No, and Leah's case, 6'4", to be honest with you. The difference between male and female performance is absolutely vast in some sports, like weightlifting. It's 30%. That's just utterly ridiculous. And even in the closest ones, it's 10, 12%. Something like long jump, high jump, 20%. So it's absolutely huge. Yeah. So if they can mitigate half of that, well, great, but they still have absolutely a huge advantage, which, if it was done on qualifying times, they wouldn't even be able to enter the Olympics because they wouldn't be fast enough, with say 6 or 7% of an advantage. And we make sure that no one is taking drugs to try and cheat, to try and gain the tiniest advantage. And yet women were expected just to accept that someone was going to come into the sport with a 6, 7, 8, even 20% advantage. Yeah. And it was just crazy. It just was not fair to half of the population, as you said. Inclusion is really important, though, and FINA have said, look, we're going to create an open category. We're spending 6 months now with a workshop trying to make sure we get this right, talking to everybody. But basically, anyone that has gone through male puberty will not be allowed to compete in the female category.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And the key thing is, this isn't non-inclusive. Trans women and trans men are completely welcome to compete, but in their own biological category. So Leah Thomas and us, Leah Thomas is still entitled to compete. Leah Thomas just can't compete against women because Leah Thomas was born a man and remains biologically a man.
Yeah, and the other thing which was incredibly frustrating for us as females was that transgender men, so biological females, didn't choose to go and race with the men. They chose to stay
Sharon,
in the women's category.
Why didn't they do that?
In every direction.
Why wouldn't they?
Absolutely. And we don't have a problem with that. That's absolutely the truth. The fact that females don't have a problem with anyone who's transitioned to be a man, who hasn't taken any testosterone, who still wishes to carry on and compete in the female category. So then that rule should apply to the men's category. It's about men being inclusive of anyone who's non-gender conforming. But that wasn't the case. What happened was that transgender women then wished to move over and compete in the women's category to take the advantage as well.
Do you think this is a really big moment for women's sport as opposed to average men's sport, which is what women's sport was about to become with a number of people? We told, there are very, very few trans people and very, very few trans athletes, but actually more and more times we're seeing people cropping up, and the podium being the man is taking the first place, the biological man taking the first place, women being pushed out, and that this was going to be the future. Do you think this is a real sea change moment? And yeah, let's have an open category, absolutely fine, really want everyone to be able to compete, but not at the expense of fairness for women.
Yeah, it is a big moment. We also had a bad moment yesterday with FIFA doing the absolute opposite and turning around and saying that they are opening sport to anyone who identifies as a woman without reducing testosterone at all. Yeah. So that was very bad. But I'm hoping that this will give women in other sports the courage to take on their governing bodies and say, we deserve fair sport. It's happening in aquatics, it can happen in our sport too. Yeah. And cycling is the first one we have to have a go at because, their rules are just ridiculous. And they're still not asking the female athletes. They are only asking advocate groups.
This is where women need to band together, because where women just say, no, we're not going to compete. It's not fair. We're not attacking this individual person. This is just not fair. When women stand together and frankly, are spectators, no, we simply won't go and watch someone effectively, I'm sorry, cheating in sport and it being allowed by the governing body. If we all just say no, there are quite a lot of us.
Yeah, it's legalised cheating, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, you can't blame the transgender athlete if the rules are there, they're taking advantage of them. So it's the governing bodies that are letting us down. And, you know, that is just not good enough. But it was a fantastic day yesterday, very, very emotional, because as you know, it's been an incredibly difficult last few years. And I think now that, you know, hopefully more people will be able to feel that they can come out and agree. And in
absolutely.
fact, lots of people that have always been sitting on the fence were retweeting the tweets last night. So it's about people having the courage, because we know the general public believe in fairness.
Yeah. And again, it's not transphobic. No one hates trans people. I know you've got, you know, trans friends. This is not.
Oh, I have. Yes, absolutely.
But this is the key thing, Sharon.
You believe in fairness. So that's the thing. Most trans people I know actually believe in fairness.
This is the thing. I mean, and also, I'm just finally, you know, I've said this to you before. You are such a hero of mine because you stood out on this. You have had so much abuse, threats. I know you've lost work. You've lost even some of the free work you've done as an ambassador for charities because it's considered to be too controversial a subject. It's not controversial here, and it's not controversial for my listeners and viewers. It's not controversial for 50% of the population who you've been standing up for. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
And thank you too, because, you know, there have been certain people that have given us the opportunity to get our message out, and you're definitely one of those. So thank you so much.
You go off and do your mum duties, get to the dentist.